I was driving home from the doctor's office, clutching the positive pregnancy test in my trembling hands. After 8 months with Trevor, we were finally going to be a family. My heart was racing with excitement as I pulled into our apartment complex 2 hours earlier than usual. I could hear his voice from the living room as I approached our door, and I was about to burst in with the amazing news when I heard him say, "She's so stupid and desperate she believes everything." I froze outside our front door, realizing he was talking about me. Before I tell you how I made him regret every single word he said that day, let me know where you are watching from, and if you have ever discovered someone's true feelings about you in the worst possible way, hit that like button. Subscribe, because what I did next will make you believe in perfect timing and karma. Trust me, his reaction 2 weeks later was worth every tear I shed that afternoon. Let me give you the full picture of how I ended up in this situation. I am Helena, 29 years old, and I have worked as a software engineer for one of the biggest tech companies in Seattle for the past 6 years. I make a six-figure salary, own my penthouse apartment outright, and drive a BMW that I saved up for and bought myself. I have always been financially independent and proud of my ability to take care of myself. 8 months ago, I met Trevor at the coffee shop near my office building. He was 26, charming, and worked as a freelance graphic designer. What attracted me initially was his creative energy and the way he seemed so passionate about his art. He had this easy smile and made me laugh in ways I had not experienced in years. After my last relationship ended badly 2 years earlier, I had been focusing entirely on my career and was not looking for anything serious. Trevor and I started dating casually, but things moved quickly. He was attentive, romantic, and seemed genuinely interested in my work and my life. After 3 months of dating, he mentioned that his lease was ending and he was having trouble finding an affordable place in the city. Rent prices had skyrocketed, and as a freelancer, his income was unpredictable. Without thinking twice, I offered to let him move into my spare bedroom temporarily until he got back on his feet. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags that I chose to ignore because I was falling in love. Trevor never paid for our dinner dates, always claiming he had forgotten his wallet or his card was temporarily blocked by the bank for suspicious activity. When I would offer to pay, he would act embarrassed and promise to make it up to me later, which never happened. He started borrowing money for what he called client emergencies or equipment repairs that were supposedly holding up big projects. The financial requests became more frequent and larger. First, it was $200 for a software license he needed for a rush job, then $500 for car repairs so he could meet with an important client. When his laptop supposedly crashed right before a major deadline, I handed over $1,500 without questioning his story. Each time, Trevor would promise to pay me back as soon as his client payments came through, but those payments never seemed to materialize. What really bothered me was how he treated my apartment like his own personal space. He would invite his friends over without asking use my car whenever he wanted, and even let his buddy Marcus borrow it for a weekend trip. When I confronted him about boundaries, he would turn on the charm and make me feel like I was being controlling or unreasonable. He had this way of making his problems become my problems, and I always ended up apologizing for bringing up concerns. The most troubling aspect was how often he mentioned his ex-girlfriend Madison. They had dated for 2 years before breaking up about 6 months before we met. Madison was an aspiring model and influencer who lived an expensive lifestyle funded by various boyfriends. Trevor would bring her up in conversations, comparing my practical wardrobe to her sophisticated style, or commenting on how she understood the artist's struggle in ways that I apparently did not. Over the past few weeks, I had noticed Trevor becoming more distant and secretive. He would take phone calls in another room and step outside when his phone rang during our conversations. His affection toward me had cooled considerably, and when I tried to talk about our future together, he would change the subject or make vague comments about taking things one day at a time. The morning of the pregnancy discovery started like any other. I had been feeling tired and nauseous for over a week, and when I realized I had missed my period, I decided to take a pregnancy test. When it came back positive, I scheduled an immediate appointment with my doctor to confirm. Dr. Sarah Martinez congratulated me and confirmed that I was approximately 6 weeks pregnant. Driving home, I felt a mixture of joy and nervousness. Trevor and I had never specifically discussed having children, but I assumed he would be excited about starting a family together. I had even stopped at the baby store and bought tiny yellow booties to surprise him with when I shared the news. I was planning to cook his favorite dinner and create a romantic moment for the announcement. I stood outside our apartment door, key in hand, listening to Trevor's voice from the living room. At first, I thought he might be on a work call with a client, but then I heard him say clearly, "She's so pathetic, Madison." My blood ran cold when I realized he was talking to his ex-girlfriend. I pressed myself against the wall beside the door and listened as Trevor continued speaking. "Trust me, it's just temporary. She's so stupid and desperate she believes everything I tell her," Trevor said with a laugh in his voice that I had never heard before. Madison's voice came through clearly on what must have been a FaceTime call. "I cannot believe you are still with that boring engineer. Does not she suspect anything?" "Are you kidding me?" Trevor replied. "I am just using her for her money until you take me back. She actually thinks we will get married. Can you imagine?" Both of them burst into laughter, and I felt like I might vomit right there in the hallway. The positive pregnancy test was still in my purse, and here was the father of my unborn child calling me pathetic to the woman he apparently still loved. Madison continued the conversation with cruel enthusiasm. "What about that time she bought you the new laptop I saw the Instagram story?" "She is so pathetic," Trevor said, his voice full of contempt. "I told her mine was broken for important client work, and she handed over $1,500 without even questioning it. She just wants to be helpful so badly that she will believe any story I tell her." As I stood there listening, Trevor began recounting other instances where he had manipulated me financially. The car repair bill that was supposedly $800 but was actually only $200. The emergency medical bill for $1,200 that was completely fabricated. The rent money he claimed to need for his old apartment but had actually spent on a weekend trip with his friends. "How much have you gotten out of her so far?" Madison asked with obvious amusement. "Over $12,000 in 8 months, Trevor replied proudly. "And the best part is that she thinks it is all loans that I plan to pay back. She even keeps a little notebook tracking what I owe her like some kind of accountant." The cruelty in his voice was devastating. He was describing me like I was some kind of mark in a con game rather than the woman he claimed to love. Madison was encouraging him, asking for more details about my supposed stupidity and gullibility. "When are you planning to dump her?" Madison asked casually. "Soon. I was waiting for you to confirm that you wanted me back. Now that you broke up with that investment banker, we can be together again. I just need to figure out how to get out of her apartment without making her suspicious." "Why not just ghost her?" Madison suggested. "Because I might need to borrow more money for our European vacation. I want to keep her thinking we have a future until I can squeeze out a few more thousand for our trip." They spent several more minutes discussing their plans with Trevor, describing me as clingy, desperate, and pathetic. Madison made comments about my appearance, calling my professional wardrobe frumpy and grandmother-like. Trevor agreed enthusiastically, admitting that he had to pretend to find me attractive and that it was honestly difficult sometimes. The final blow came when Madison asked about my feelings for him. "Does she actually think you love her back?" "She is completely delusional," Trevor replied. "She talks about our future together all the time. Sometimes I think she is more in love with the idea of being in a relationship than with me specifically. She just wants someone to take care of so badly that she does not even care if the feelings are real." Standing in that hallway, holding the pregnancy test that represented what I thought was our shared future, I realized that every moment of our relationship had been a lie. Trevor had never loved me, had never planned a future with me, and had been actively planning to abandon me while stealing as much money as possible. Instead of confronting him immediately, something inside me shifted into a cold, calculating mode. I quietly walked back to the elevator and went downstairs to my car. I sat there for 10 minutes processing what I had heard and planning my next move. If Trevor thought I was stupid and gullible, I would use that assumption against him. When I finally entered the apartment, I put on the biggest smile I could manage. Hey babe, I am home early. Trevor quickly ended his call and turned toward me with a concerned expression that I now knew was completely fake. Hey sweetheart, how was your doctor appointment? You look a little pale. Just routine stuff, I replied casually, hiding the pregnancy test in my purse. Everything is fine, nothing to worry about. Are you sure you seem upset about something? He said, putting his arms around me in what I now recognized as a performance. Actually, I was thinking we should order dinner from that Italian place you love. My treat, obviously, I said, testing whether he would accept more of my money while knowing he was planning to leave me. His face lit up with genuine enthusiasm. That sounds perfect. You are so thoughtful, Helena. This is why I love you so much. Hearing him say he loved me while knowing what he had just said to Madison made my stomach turn, but I maintained my cheerful facade. I was going to need time to plan my response carefully, and Trevor had no idea that his entire world was about to collapse. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own relationship. Every time Trevor took a private call, I found ways to listen. Every time he left his laptop open, I gathered evidence. What I discovered was even worse than what I had overheard that first day. Trevor had been talking to Madison for months, not just since our recent conversation. They had been planning his exit strategy from our relationship while coordinating his return to her life. Madison had been dating a wealthy investment banker, but had broken up with him specifically so she and Trevor could get back together. Their European vacation was already booked and paid for with a credit card that Trevor had opened using my address and employment information. The most damning evidence was a draft text message I found on his phone that he had prepared to send me when he was ready to break up. It read, "Helena, I care about you deeply, but I realize I am not ready for the kind of commitment you want. I think it would be best if we took some time apart to figure out what we both really want. I will always treasure our time together." He had also been researching tenant rights because he wanted to continue living in my apartment for another month after breaking up with me. His plan was to claim he needed time to find a new place while secretly preparing to move in with Madison. He was even going to ask for a security deposit and first month's rent to help with his transition. The financial manipulation was more extensive than I had initially realized. Trevor had created fake invoices from clients to justify his constant need for equipment and software. He had fabricated emergencies and crises to extract money from me systematically. The total amount he had stolen was closer to $14,000 when I included the credit card charges he had made without my knowledge. On day 6 of my investigation, I decided it was time to set my trap. I had been researching pregnancy announcement ideas online, making sure Trevor would see my browser history. I wanted him to think I was planning to surprise him with the news so I could record his genuine reaction when I told him. That evening, I prepared his favorite dinner and set up a romantic atmosphere in our dining room. I hid my phone nearby, set to record audio, and brought out the positive pregnancy test along with the tiny yellow booties I had bought. "Trevor, I have some incredible news to share with you," I said, watching his face carefully. When I showed him the pregnancy test, his initial expression of shock quickly transformed into what looked like excitement. "Oh my God, Helena, this is amazing. We are going to be parents." He hugged me tightly and told me how much he loved me, how excited he was about our future together, and how this baby would complete our perfect family. His performance was so convincing that for a moment I almost forgot what I knew about his real feelings. "I love you so much, Trevor. I cannot wait to start this new chapter of our lives together," I said, testing how far he would take the lie. "You are going to be such an amazing mother," he replied, kissing my forehead. "Our child is so lucky to have you. I promise I will be the best father I can be." Later that night, I pretended to go to bed early, claiming exhaustion from the pregnancy. I set up my phone to record from the hallway and waited. Sure enough, within an hour, Trevor was on the phone with Madison. "She is pregnant," he said in a panicked voice. "This ruins everything. How do I get out of this now?" Madison's response was ice cold. "Just deny it is yours and leave. You have enough money saved up anyway, right?" "I cannot believe I am stuck with her for 9 months," Trevor replied. "This is a complete nightmare. What if she tries to get child support or something? You do not have any official income to garnish, Madison pointed out. Besides, once we are in Europe, she cannot do anything about it. Just disappear. They spent another hour discussing how Trevor could abandon me and the pregnancy without legal consequences. Madison suggested he could claim the baby was not his and demand a paternity test to buy time. Trevor worried that I might become even more clingy and desperate now that I was pregnant. The timing could not be worse, Trevor complained. I finally have enough money to start our new life together, and now this pathetic woman is trying to trap me with a baby. By the end of the call, they had decided that Trevor would break up with me gently in a few days, claim that the pregnancy news had made him realize he was not ready for such a big commitment, and then disappear with Madison to Europe before I could take any legal action. The next morning, Trevor continued his loving boyfriend performance, bringing me breakfast in bed and talking excitedly about baby names and nursery decorations. Every word felt like a knife in my back, but I maintained my happy, unsuspecting facade. That afternoon, while Trevor was supposedly at a client meeting, I visited a lawyer to understand my rights regarding the money he had stolen and the apartment lease. I also went to the bank to move our shared savings account, which contained only my money, into a personal account under my name only. I changed the passwords on all the streaming services, utility accounts, and subscription services that were under my name and that Trevor had been using freely. On day 8, Trevor attempted to execute his planned breakup. He came home that evening, looking serious, and sat me down on the couch with a concerned expression. "Helena, I need to talk to you about something important." He began following his rehearsed script. "The pregnancy news has made me do some serious thinking about my life and what I want for my future." "What do you mean?" I asked innocently, knowing exactly where this was going. "I care about you so much, and I always will, but I realize that I am not ready for the kind of commitment that a baby represents. I think it would be best for both of us if we took some time apart to figure out what we really want." Before he could continue with his prepared speech, I pulled out my phone. "That is interesting, Trevor. Let me play something for you." I played the recording from our first conversation when he was talking to Madison, starting with, "She is so stupid and desperate she believes everything." Trevor's face went completely white as he heard his own voice calling me pathetic and admitting that he was using me for money. "Helena, I can explain," he stammered. "That conversation is taken out of context. Madison was manipulating me into saying those things." "Really?" I replied calmly. "Let me play you some more context then." I played recording after recording, including his reaction to the pregnancy news and his plans to abandon me and flee to Europe. With each new piece of evidence, Trevor became more desperate in his explanations. "You recorded me without my consent," he finally shouted. "That is illegal." "Actually, this is a one-party consent state, so these recordings are perfectly legal," I replied. "But you know what is illegal: identity theft, credit card fraud, and stealing $14,000 from someone who trusted you." I handed him a folder containing printed copies of all his fake invoices, fraudulent credit card applications, and documented lies. I also gave him a legal notice requiring him to vacate the premises within 24 hours. "You have until tomorrow evening to pack your belongings and leave," I said calmly. "Security will escort you out if you are still here after that." Trevor spent the next hour cycling through denial, anger, bargaining, and desperation. He claimed he really loved me and that Madison had manipulated him. He promised to pay back every dollar and go to couples counseling. When none of that worked, he tried to make me feel guilty about the pregnancy, suggesting that our child deserved to have both parents. "Our child deserves to have at least one parent who is honest and trustworthy," I replied. "Unfortunately, that parent is not you." The final blow came the next morning when I sent all the recordings to Madison, along with a message that read, "Enjoy your European vacation with this pathetic loser. You two deserve each other." Madison immediately blocked Trevor on all social media platforms and apparently broke off their reunion plans. She even posted a cryptic Instagram story about dodging bullets and fake people who lie about everything. Trevor lost both relationships in a single day and found himself homeless, broke, and exposed as a liar and thief. The consequences of Trevor's actions unfolded faster than even I had anticipated. Within 24 hours of being kicked out of my apartment, he was forced to move back in with his parents, which was humiliating for a 26-year-old man who had been living independently. He had no savings because all the money he had stolen from me had already been spent on his lifestyle and the European vacation deposits that Madison had now canceled. During the first week, Trevor lost several of his freelance clients because he could no longer afford the software and equipment needed to complete their projects. Without my financial support, his carefully constructed image as a successful graphic designer crumbled quickly. He had been using my apartment, my car, and my credit cards to maintain a lifestyle that was completely unsustainable on his actual income. The second week brought Trevor's most desperate attempts to win me back. He sent me dozens of text messages begging for a chance to talk this through and work things out for the sake of our baby. When I blocked his number, he started messaging me from his friends' phones and creating fake social media accounts to try to contact me. He showed up at my workplace twice, forcing building security to escort him away and threatening to call the police if he returned. He called my friends and family members, trying to get them to mediate on his behalf and convince me that he had learned his lesson. When my best friend Sarah told me about his call, she said he sounded completely unhinged and kept insisting that I was destroying our family over a misunderstanding. The most dramatic moment came at the end of week 2 during a particularly heavy rainstorm. I was in my apartment enjoying the peace and quiet of living alone again when I heard someone shouting outside my building. I looked out my window and saw Trevor standing in the middle of the street soaking wet and screaming my name. "Helena, please, I love you," he yelled at the top of his lungs. "I made a mistake, I need you." The neighbors started calling down from their windows, telling him to be quiet and go home. Building security came out to ask him to leave, but he refused. For over an hour, he stood in the pouring rain, alternately shouting declarations of love and angry accusations about how I was ruining his life. Finally, someone called the police. When the officers arrived, Trevor was arrested for disturbing the peace, trespassing, and violating the restraining order I had filed earlier that week. Watching him get handcuffed in the rain while shouting my name felt like the final chapter of our twisted relationship. The legal proceedings that followed were swift and decisive. I filed a formal complaint for harassment and took Trevor to small claims court for the $14,000 he had stolen from me. He could not afford a lawyer and represented himself poorly, trying to argue that the money had been gifts rather than loans. When I presented the recordings of him admitting to stealing and his detailed plans to disappear with the money, the judge ordered full restitution plus court costs. Trevor's downward spiral continued as word spread through the local graphic design community about his behavior. Freelance work dried up as potential clients heard stories about his dishonesty and financial manipulation. His reputation was destroyed not through any action on my part, but simply through the natural consequences of his own choices. Meanwhile, Madison had moved on quickly to a new relationship with someone who actually had the financial means to support her expensive lifestyle. She posted pictures from expensive restaurants and luxury vacations, making sure Trevor could see exactly what he had lost by trying to play both sides. Her social media posts about dodging bullets and pathetic ex-boyfriends clearly referenced Trevor adding public humiliation to his growing list of problems. For me, the aftermath brought unexpected clarity and strength. Initially, I was worried about raising a child alone, but I quickly realized that I was better equipped financially and emotionally to provide stability without Trevor's chaos and lies. My friends and family rallied around me with incredible support, and I felt more excited about the future than I had in months. 6 months into my pregnancy, I was thriving in ways I never had while supporting Trevor's parasitic lifestyle. My work performance improved dramatically without the constant stress of his financial emergencies and emotional manipulation. I used the money I was no longer lending to Trevor to prepare a beautiful nursery and set up a college fund for my baby. Trevor continued his occasional attempts to contact me through mutual acquaintances, usually when he was facing some new financial crisis, and hoped I might take pity on him. Each time the message was the same, he had learned his lesson, he wanted to be involved with the baby, and he promised to pay back every dollar he owed me. I never responded to these overtures, knowing that his promises were worthless. 8 months after the breakup, Trevor made his final desperate attempt to insert himself back into my life. He showed up uninvited at my baby shower, claiming that he had a right to be involved with his child. The party stopped as everyone stared at this disheveled man who had somehow gotten past building security. "Helena, please, I want to be part of our baby's life," he said in front of all my friends and family. "I know I made mistakes, but I can change. I have been going to therapy and working on myself. If you want to claim parental rights, you will need to submit to a court-ordered paternity test and catch up on the child support you already owe," I replied calmly. "That would be approximately $28,000 by now, including the money you stole and the support payments you should have been making." Trevor's face fell as he realized that his financial obligations would continue to grow every month, regardless of whether he was involved in the child's life. He had been hoping for reconciliation that would erase his debts, not legal responsibilities that would follow him for the next 18 years. "I do not have that kind of money," he admitted quietly. "Then you do not have parental rights," I replied. "Security will escort you out now." That was the last time I ever saw Trevor in person, though I occasionally heard updates about his continued struggles through mutual acquaintances. He was working minimum wage jobs, living in studio apartments, and still dealing with the legal and financial consequences of his choices. The most important lesson I learned from this experience was the difference between love and manipulation. For months, I had confused Trevor's charm and neediness with genuine affection, not realizing that he saw me as a resource to be exploited rather than a person to be loved. The pregnancy announcement had come at the perfect time to reveal his true character before I wasted any more years on someone who never valued me. 1 year later, I was a happy single mother with a healthy baby daughter. My career continued to flourish, my financial situation was stronger than ever, and I had built a support system of people who genuinely cared about my well-being. I felt no regret about ending the relationship and no sadness about raising my child without Trevor's influence. Sometimes people ask me if I think Trevor really loved me at some point, or if it was all manipulation from the beginning. The truth is that it does not matter. What matters is that he showed me exactly who he was when he thought I could not hear him, and I chose to believe what he showed me rather than what he said. That positive pregnancy test did not just tell me I was going to be a mother, it told me I was strong enough to be one alone. And sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is show you exactly who they are when they think you cannot hear them. Have you ever discovered someone's true feelings about you in a shocking way? What would you have done if you overheard your partner talking about you, like Trevor talked about me? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button if this story showed you the importance of trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. Subscribe for more stories about recognizing manipulation and finding the strength to walk away from toxic relationships. Please share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they deserve honesty and respect in their relationships, not just pretty words and empty promises. Remember, actions always speak louder than words, and people show you who they really are when they think no one is watching. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you the courage to value yourself enough to demand better treatment from the people in your life.